Your flight, your mid-upper gunner.
That's not even, I think that you should have been.
Where is he from?
Huh?
Because we know nothing about him.
It's okay.
And they played around with it this morning.
You know, there were
Getting me ready.
Oh, okay.
It took forever. Yeah, they go back.
a lot of people.
Okay.
I was
Was he young?
in bed waiting and waiting and waiting.
Was Andy a young guy?
Get me up.
Andre Blay. Well, all I knew about him,
The nurse I got on this morning.
he celebrated his 18th birthday
He kept getting up.
on the squadron. He was the oldest of 9 children of a widowed mother in Trois-Rivières, and
So I got these, this is for
he was,
pads?
you know, he was a first class,
Oh yeah, that's my.
first class crew member. We had
That's my.
he in that bad night that we had. The wireless operator got a bunch of shrapnel in his backside here,
Okay.
and Andy got a bunch of this in the face, and fortunately, nothing on his eyes.
Okay.
And he was in the hospital for,
Want to get rid of this great.
oh, I don't know,
No,
I'm not sure. He stayed at Woodbridge, and we went home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, good, yeah, it was cool.
then he came back to the squadron, and there was a fellow, a squadron leader, Gilead was his name, I think,
Oh, is there?
who had lost his mid-upper gunner,
May have been on the shelf.
and they had just about the same number of trips. And Andy said, would I object if he went with Gilead and would finish a tour at about the same time?
Okay.
And I had no objection at all. I was sorry to lose him because he was not only a hell of a nice guy, but a damn good crew member.
On your lap.
And they went to Hamburg that night and never came back.
Okay.
And you know, it was for all of us. He was the youngest guy in the crew. I was an old man of 23, and we were really sorry to. But and you know, I was sorry as hell for his mother and the
Okay.
family up in Trois-Rivières, because they would certainly have missed him. But
Okay. Now I'll show you this part. This is. It's in this. I'll let you hold that.
Yeah, I had Shirley and.
Although you probably can't read it.
They've changed their mind.
Oh, okay, and,
Turn across to here again.
today.
And something's wrong. Shirley's not feeling quite good.
No?
Something wrong with Shirley.
Oh, dear.
Oh, yeah. I need to do it here. Actually.
See, it has here. We had an extra under gunner, Sergeant Blay, who was normally MU gunner for P.O. Kasper's crew, and that was
Oh,
you.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's enough for me to get away out.
Good.
I'm sorry, can you
Keep it so you don't break it.
It has here, we had an extra under gunner, mid-under gunner, Sergeant Blay, who was normal mid-upper gunner for P.O. Kasper's crew.
I'll fill it the
That was you, right?
I got your other cards, you should have up there too.
Yeah, okay.
well, we only mid-unders. We used a mid-under the night we went to Cambrai.
Hey,
Because they put a mid-under gunner on that night.
I don't know if, you know, they had that, it looked like a manhole cover in the back, and they had this mid-under gunner with some straps on them. We went to Cambridge that night. That we were bombing from 500
Early
feet,
on in the evening,
and
they gave me some pills,
Yeah,
which were good.
to help you sleep,
but
When they went off all my
okay?
I would have to look at my logbook to see
Okay?
if we had a
Probably a lot of
Because he was on my uncle's plane then.
yeah.
Yeah, you can have that.
Okay.
Um,
Goodness, you've done a lot of work there. Oh, no.
There's just more pictures in case you remember them. There's a happy time they were having.
Oh, yeah.
Can't get the detail.
You were shaking and then you kind
I've
of,
been doing that all day.
and then you started, sort of went out with it.
There's another plane there they flew on. That was the Queen of Spades.
Okay, I was right there beside you.
Did I do this?
No, you just put the two you could do.
Oh, it's not well.
Yeah.
Bad.
And you had a squadron leader or a wing commander, Jacobs? D. Jacobs was the wing commander or squadron leader?
What was the name?
Jacobs.
Oh, Jacobs. David Sinclair Jacobs.
Okay.
The finest man who ever wore the uniform.
Piece goes on top.
I'm glad to hear that.
There's a wall.
This plane here, as far as my records tell, everybody thinks this is the plane my uncle was on when it went down. This was EQH LL687
Yeah.
That's the plane that Jacobs was on when he was shot down.
He was one of the. We went to Dortmund,
They are close.
and there was lots of, or a thin cloud cover, so you would silhouetted these guys. And one of the other squadron guys, Jacobs was flying O for Orange, I think. Is that O for Orange? No.
No, that's H.
And they got a direct. He was on the bomb run. He got a direct hit in the bomb bay
It was
and
blown.
just blew the whole thing up.
Oh, wow.
And he took everybody, all the section heads, except the engineering leader with him. The guy had a cold, and some other engineer went with him. But Jacobs was just the finest man that you ever saw.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Oh, he was. You know, interestingly, when I first arrived, you know, we did the how do you do and went to quarters and Bedingborough Hall and all this, signing in and all this sort of stuff. And a day or two later, I went out with the engineer and the wireless operator to check, you know, the usual thing. And I'm sitting in the cockpit, and with the window open. It was a nice day, and the CO used to drive that little quarter-ton kind of a truck that they had, whatever you called them thing. And he came out, and there was one of the LACs was on the ground crew. I don't know what he was doing. But he came along over to this guy, and I could hear this quite clearly. And he addressed him by his name, and he said, "How is that child of yours that had the measles or the mumps or something like that? And how's your wife doing? How's everything?" And he talked to this guy and made sure that he and his wife and that. And this was Jacobs, with every man on the squadron, you know, not just aircrew guys, but here's this LAC ground crew. And he was that kind of a man.
Took a
He was
personal
just
interest.
an absolute marvel of a man. Finest man who ever wore the uniform.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
Glad
boy,
to hear
did
that.
we grieve when he left, because the guy we got after him, that McClernand, was a real horse's eye.
Oh, there's one picture in here.
Hey?
There's one, because I got all these things all stuck together here.
David Sinclair Jacobs. I think he came from Guelph or Kitchener or someplace like that. Because years later at a reunion, 4-week reunion, one of the people that were dealing with this contacted either his parents or his mother that was in a nursing home in either Guelph or Kitchener or someplace there. So, but my goodness.
All kinds of pieces of
He
paper.
did his first tour on Hamden. Now you know that we were the last squadron to convert from twin engine in Bomber Command.
Yeah.
The last squadron to fly twin engine.
Okay, when did they make that change?
408 was.
But when did they make that change? When did they, that's when they stopped flying Lancasters?
We had the Hamptons, and then we went to the Hellies, and then we went to the Lanc 2s. The Halifaxes with the 12-cylinder, the Rolls-Royce engine,
Yeah.
which was kind of a wobbly thing at 17,000, and of course with those big Cyclone engines in it, we were the queen of the sky up at
Oh, okay.
22,000 all the time, and it was just a marvelous machine. And just to indicate what it was like, we landed one night at, it was all fogged in Yorkshire. We landed at an American base near London called Mildenhall.
Okay.
And they were very kind to us. They fed us and gave us a bed. And in the morning, when we had finished breakfast, some major comes along, sees that I have the pilot's wings, and he says, "I've checked the weather report. Your base is all fogged in. How would you like to take me for a ride in your Lancaster?"
Yeah, I'm gonna
Oh.
check your
And I said,
vitals.
"Well,
That's
why
what
not?"
happened.
Grabbed the engineer and the wireless
Yes,
off,
that's what you're doing here.
and took this fellow and out to the lake, and he was surprised that we only had
Yeah.
one seat. It was
Not
only-
remembering
and he
Oh,
was
in the,
one pilot.
yeah.
And we took
I knew
off,
that before.
and I undid the
I knew
harness,
that
and
before this.
we got to 5,000 feet, undid the harness,
No, I didn't.
put him in
I
it,
was with
strapped
your
him in,
roommate this morning.
and he said,
And I saw
"My
him
God,
trying to get you up
this
for
thing is just like the
breakfast.
Harvard I
You
flew
didn't have any energy yet.
in training." And he flew this thing
You had to get
around.
up. You knew
And
you
then
had to
we
get up, but he had no
flew around
energy.
for a while, and he looked at things and all the, and we went back, and he got out, and I landed, and he checked again with the meteorologist, and he said, "They're still fogged in. How would you like to come for a ride in the B-17? Well, it was,
Let's check.
I don't want to be unkind here, but it was kind of like trying to fly a train car.
Believe me, he has a 90 degrees.
Okay.
Lumbering along, but then they had 11 crew and that huge
38.
weight of ammunition that they had, and the way they used to fly in their gaggles.
I don't know, but you got a fever.
And he said, "My God, this thing is like the Harvard I used to fly." And
That's
it
what I thought
was.
when you were telling me you had the chills.
It was a marvelous.
See, I, you hadn't told me this, I just
Then-
saw what
When
happened.
I left a 408,
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna see what,
I don't know if somebody made a mistake or what the hell was going on, but I got sent up to
We may have problems.
a unit. They had a small training unit in 6th Group
Your job, you know
for
that.
the
I know.
6th Group bombers.
I see that.
And we used to take in, the bombers would get up there and do their training exercises on the range, and with the Spitfires to let the gunners do their range estimation and their pattern with the pilots. And I got sent up there, And I looked at this thing, it looked like a little matchbox toy after the Lancaster. And so the flight commander, a guy named Ben Gilmore, gets a parachute. He says,
Just let me get the edge of
"This is how you started, and
That's right,
I guess you know how to fly."
I see where you're going.
I don't know.
So I
Anyway,
wobbled
to
around.
finish
and
that, she said,
The landing was not something that I would want you to photograph,
Oh, okay.
but it was okay. Second, third time, you know, you learned the drill and the pattern,
I was
and,
supposed to go.
and it was a marvelous
think the Saturday.
posting to have, because when the boys on the squadron were on operations, we had nothing to do except go around and play in the sky,
Okay.
and there was no real limit on how much we could fly or this sort of thing. It was there were only about 20 of us there, and it was marvelous.
So when did they take you out of the operations?
And it was after D-Day in July of 44.
Okay. When did you go over there? When did you go over to start flying?
When did I go over to England?
Yeah.
When I brought them up, I put them inside the computer bay,
Oh, I see.
and I forgot.
Went over on the Queen Mary. They had the thing had 17,000, if memory serves, 17,000
Quite happy with that, we know.
all
Yes,
uniformed
there's that sun shining in there.
troops on this, and there were a lot of submarines out. We went from wherever we'd been held to Halifax, got on the train down to New York, and then right onto the Queen
I
Mary.
saw Paula today,
And
and she said, any changes?
it was dark at night,
Like,
and we
whatever,
took
and I
off,
said, "Nope, he's
and
still
then all of a
staying
sudden
there."
there
"Oh,
was
good," she said, "Give him one
noises
more."
on
And Grace
the
was there.
tannoy, whatever they called it on shipboard, and
Poor
somebody
Oliver,
said
so
a submarine had been
I said,
sighted,
"Oh, have you seen Grace?"
and the
No.
captain just put it in high gear, and he just went across the Atlantic in record time. He wasn't going to get caught if he could by a torpedo with
Yeah.
17,000 guys.
There's a lot of guys on there.
So we went off
And
to
what happened? Did they do
Groupe
it?
in Scotland,
Something happened with Chad.
and then got on board a train,
I think
and
my
went down
mouse
to
was somewhere down. I think I knocked it down now.
Oh, yeah, of course.
what the hell?
In the house.
You know, the big holding
But that was my thing.
holding in the hotel place, the holiday place in Southern,
I'm so glad that, yeah, I can get on with that, dude.
the name of the place.
I'm so glad.
Had all the nice hotels and the little river and the gardens and
I don't remember.
everything there.
Yeah, well, then you have to
And I
probably
was-
haven't read it.
We had one of the other fellows with me, a guy named Don McCrae from Revelstoke. We had been through the navigation specialist course at Charlottetown, and as such designated for Coastal Command, because they cross-trained pilots and navigators so that they only needed 3 of these people. They would have a pilot fly. The other guy would navigate, the other guy would have a snooze or make coffee or something, and they would rotate. And so I had 3 cousins in Coastal Command, 2 of them up at Lochern and 1 of them down at Wigan on a land-based long range. And we had met them, or I had corresponded with them, and they said, you know, you're hours and hours and hours of flying and doing nothing, seeing nothing, so on. And so when we got to Bournemouth was the place.
Okay.
Up, they had a little form, you know, the usual. The English have a longer sheet of paper than we do.
Yeah.
They had up here in the corner your preference in postings, and so Dawn and I, never for a moment thinking that that the file wouldn't follow us pretty quickly, put on this thing, bomber command, bomber command, bomber command. And the next day I was gone. Next day, you know, we really knew nothing about what was happening over there. We just arrived and we didn't know anything about casualty rate or something. And I went zipping through, and when I was at the OTU, our first we were on Wellington, and the first cross country that we had to do was from the Midlands, Atherstone, the Midlands, to just short of Dublin, which was neutral territory, and then up to the Scottish Islands, and then back down here again. And of course, the usual procedure. I was expecting the navigator to take all the times and all the information on his log, and I was expecting him to give me an ETA for Dublin and a new course for. And I'm getting nothing from him, and about 10 minutes out I asked for a new course, and he grunts something that made no sense to me, and nothing further came, and so we got close to Dublin, and so I turned on an approximate course, and went back to see what the hell this guy was doing. And he had been sitting there. He was a French-Canadian kid from Montreal. He'd been sitting there reading a novel and had no entry on his chart at all. So I had to take and make, you know, departure time and try to take and calculate a wind and this sort of thing. And then the next point, a checkpoint where we could take and get some information, the Isle of Man and whatever. And then we got up to the, I think it was it Skye, the Isle of Skye, or Northern Scotland there, and then the south. And all of a sudden, the rear gunner, I'm spending half my time on this chart and the other time with the autopilot plugged in, and I come back to the seat, and the rear gunner, Jack Moore, says, hey, there's an aircraft about 3,000 feet up there. I can't see him very clearly, but he's been sort of coming along with us. But I said, okay, keep an eye on him. And I just got settled in, harnessed and up, and he said, port, go! And I turned off. It was a German, one of their Junkers 88 that they used to take and have, looking for targets of opportunity. And this guy missed us by about 40 feet. But then he knew he'd been seen, so he buzzed off looking for somebody else. And we went home, and I don't remember any kind words at all for that navigator. The next day, he had a little interview with the crusty old RAF wing commander, you know, big mustache, and 2 or 3 wars behind him, and he just took and peeled, like skin off an onion, peeled all the psyche of this guy. And he was going to Canada, and he kicked his ass out of the service. And of course, it was just absolutely disgraceful. You know, why the hell was he there if he didn't want to come? And if he wanted to be a navigator, because how did he ever get this far? But in any case, he was gone. We got another navigator, Joe Brown, and there was a pub where the base was new and was scattered, and there was a pub about 2 miles down the road, and we would go down there until the guy said, "Time, gentlemen, please." This way we'd get on our bicycles and go home. And I've got this guy, Joe Brown, the navigator, for about, I don't know, 10 days, I guess. And he falls off his bicycle, breaks his wrist. the wing commander
Because you know what? You
makes
just
an
got
acid
to recover.
comment
You seem
about,
like a nice guy.
they had to get me another navigator. He made an acid comment about, he's going to institute a new course about the care and feeding of navigators for Casper. Anyway, the next one was, he was the superlative navigator. He'd been training to be an actuarial scientist
Was it very, very intense?
before the war.
Yes.
And a mind like a steel trap. Never had a drink, never had a smoke, never been out on a date with him. And he was just, he was the sort of guy who would sit around and say, if that bridge game last Wednesday in the third, if you had, yeah, one of those. But he was an absolute marvel, Frank Elmore.
CBC, absolutely. Can you do lights
He went into, studied law after the war. And,
Take for every test there is in the book.
Just before I came out here,
Sounds like when I shout things.
I'm on Facebook and
You know what? I'm a bit of a-
I'm friends with
If they're going to
different
draw,
associations, one of those being the
yeah,
British Commonwealth Air Training
go and I think of something
Plan
else.
program.
They had it.
And one of the guys there posted a picture.
Yeah, just like I'm just running it down.
That might be pretty hard for you to see.
oh, I can't see any of the detail here.
Okay, is that one a little bit better?
Yes, it's right
No,
now.
no.
Because that's you right in the middle.
Are you coming on this?
Oh,
one?
that.
I think I'm gonna try, because he's got the brakes on the other side, so.
Where was that picture taken?
That
I don't want
was
to get in their way.
That's gone.
graduation course 58, the 15th FSTS in Claire's home.
Oh,
To get me better.
okay.
How much it hurt.
Just seeing if it's all in one.
And the guy posted that, I sent him a message saying,
And you had like.
I'm going to see Wally Kasper because your name's on the back.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
he gave me the original. He scanned the original for
That's
me.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I know, I've seen them.
Have you?
Oh, yes. I see
My
them.
goodness.
I get it.
You have done the most amazing amount of work.
It's closed set, but it's closed.
You're going to take and put this together in a book form?
Me?
Yes.
I've got a binder full of stuff.
Hey?
I've got a binder full of stuff.
Yes, but you're going to get it published?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to publish it.
Doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are. So I'm gonna draw the.
How's your book going, Wally?
Yeah.
How's your book going?
Okay.
Oh, well, I've
You guys. What did you say, Bud?
Yeah, the last one you're writing with Pat? With Pat Scher, how's that one going?
Been to the top, is that apparently not working?
she was here last night
Yeah,
with a copy of this thing. She, just after Ruth had gone home, so they, John and
Okay, well, we're gonna do two things.
talked for a while, and they had a couple copies, and they were going to go take them off to give them to Ruth. So,
oh, okay.
but it's a well done. It's a a nice. She's a perfectionist. She did a marvelous job. Yeah.
I've tried to find your other book, but I can't find them. I'm looking for them.
Amazon.
On Amazon? Okay.
Oh, okay. The first book was published by veteran publishers in Kempsville, Ontario.
Okay.
A Night Out with the Boys, and it's a series of short stories and poems about the squadron and this sort of thing.
Yes.
The second book was a fictional work about a family in England,
They will.
and
X-ray.
then the third one was
X-ray text in there. But
about how did she sequence these.
You should have told them. I don't know.
I wrote a story about a geologist, a Canadian, who fell into some money and then went to live in France and had a bunch of blah blah. But she has published that one. It's called French Sauce,
Okay.
and that's available now on Amazon.
It's kind of a
And
shame
then,
to get over there to the other machine to elbow the other guy out of the way.
The Succession was published by Duralink here in Ottawa. It's not on Amazon. And then she took my daughter teaches geography at the university here. And when her first child was born, she waggled her finger at me and said, if you don't sit down and write out what was happening to you, you'll never know.
Yeah.
So, but you've had these sharp-edged pieces of conversation from a woman, I guess. You know how that goes. And so I sat down and wrote what I thought was going to be a very personal a letter to a new grandson. And I took and started off with the preliminaries, and then trip by trip, went to,
Yeah.
what's the name now, Millbrook in the Bomber Command diaries, and took the casualty rates and all this basic information and put this down for each trip. And never thinking for a moment that that would do anything except be in the family. And somehow my wife and Pat got to be great active friends, and I think I just gave this to her to have a look at. And Pat took this thing and she modified it and not modified it, but restructured this thing and put it into a book form. And she had these things last night, and it's very well done. So, a letter to a new grandson on Amazon.
Yeah. This here, this was actually from the 427 Squadron, I believe it was. But this is the same mission that my uncle was on. And they took off from Leaming, which was just south of you guys, right?
427.
Yeah.
Have you been going more than
They were out of Leaming,
Don't know anything about them.
but they were doing the same mission my uncle.
I'm sorry, I can't see
Okay,
the eyes, or I can't see any of this detail.
that's
You
okay.
know,
We can leave that one. Well, how did you guys crew up? How did you crew up?
How do we grow up?
Yeah.
Well, they had, I think, 20 of us, 20 pilots, 20 navigators, 20 gunners, the wireless ops, but not yet engineers at the Wellington. We were flying Wellingtons at the OQ. They shoveled us all together in a hangar, had 3 or 4 casks of beer on the stand on the side, and a bunch of sandwiches, British style, over here, and then they walked out. And we had the how do you do, and sort of, I looked at this process and wondered if a really good navigator could drink 1 pint or 10. What did he think about what would make a good pilot? Should I be drinking 10 pints or 1 or 1? So I stepped outside the door for a few minutes to think about what the hell was going on. And when I stepped back in, most of this had sort of, I don't know, if you were a chemist, I guess you would say it had kind of coagulated together. And here on this, were these guys looking pilotless, and so I went over and stuck out my hand and said, "You guys look like money in the bank to me," and so we were off and gone. So
That's a cool way to do it.
that was the process.
Yeah. That was good.
Not very elaborate, not very scientific,
The whole meal jar, everything fell out on top
but
of me. So I'm like, shit, it just caught one of the blood.
Okay, there is milk in there, look at that.
Yeah, I'm sort of running out of questions now.
Oh, okay. All right, so.
But I'm going to leave all this with you. This is yours.
So what is the organization's like? Because the other thing that you gotta think about,